When we think of Sweden today, we often see a sanctuary of peace, neutrality and modern design. It is a nation that hasn't seen a war in over 2 centuries. But history hides a more complex truth. Beneath this layer of calm lies the legacy of a former military power. Around 350 years ago, Sweden held great influence across the Baltic Sea. From the shores of Estonia to the cities of northern Germany, Sweden was no longer just a neighbor. It had become a central presence in European affairs. This is the story of Stormaktstiden, the age of great power, and how this unlikely empire left traces that can still be seen today. At the start of the 1600s, Sweden was still a poor and thinly populated country. Just decades earlier, in 1523, it had broken free from the Kalmar Union and Danish rule, and the kingdom was still rebuilding its economy and institutions. Copper from the Fallen mine and iron from Bergslagen brought in wealth, while the Reformation allowed the crown to take control of church lands and treasures. This new wealth helped fund Sweden's expansion and its ambitions to dominate the Baltic Sea, controlling trade routes and military access across the region. Under King Gustavus Adolphus, Sweden didn't just build an army, it built a machine. He introduced mobile artillery and professionalized the Swedish ranks. He became known as the Lion of the North, turning the tide of the 30 Years' War and shifting the balance of the established powers in Europe. His reforms proved so influential that centuries later, Napoleon Bonaparte studied Gustavus Adolphus' campaigns and regarded him as one of the great military innovators of European history. By the 17th century, the Swedish Empire stretched far beyond the modern borders of Sweden. Its territories included parts of what are now Finland, Russia, the Baltic countries, Denmark and Norway, and even Germany. Today, its capital Stockholm sits on the eastern edge of the country, but at the time it lay in the heart of this vast realm. In Estonia, the University of Tartu, founded during Swedish rule, still stands as a reminder of the empire's influence. As a result of centuries of Swedish presence, a small number of speakers of Estonian Swedish still remain today. In 1703, Tsar Peter the Great founded St. Petersburg on the site of the captured Swedish fortress Nyenskans along the Baltic Sea, a city designed to challenge Swedish dominance by creating a window to the west. In northern Germany, cities like Stade and Stralsund still show traces of Swedish rule. In Wismar, the colorful Schwedenkopfboosts, once harbor markers, remain a local symbol. Sweden pledged the city to the Grand Duchy of Mecklenburg-Schwerin in 1803, keeping a right to reclaim it. That right was never used, and it was only in 1903 that Sweden formally renounced all claims, making Wismar fully part of Germany. Today, Wismar celebrates Swedenfest every August, the largest Swedish festival outside of Sweden, with blue and yellow decorations, historical reenactments and Swedish food. Even across the Atlantic, Sweden's influence can still be traced. In the 17th century, the short-lived colony of Nya Sverige, or New Sweden, was founded in what is now Delaware. Today, its legacy lives on through local organizations like the Delaware Swedish Colonial Society and the New Sweden Center, which honor the Swedish and Finnish settlers who arrived nearly 400 years ago. Sweden also ventured briefly overseas in Africa, establishing the short-lived Gold Coast colony in West Africa, centered around Fort Carolus-Borg. Though limited in scale and duration, these ventures show that Sweden's reach extended far beyond Europe. In Stockholm, the ambitions of the era can still be seen in buildings such as Riddarhuset and Drottningholm Palace. The great ship Vasa, though it sank on its maiden voyage, was later recovered and can now be admired at the Vasa Museum. It remains a preserved example of 17th century craftsmanship. decorated with hundreds of sculptures that illustrate life during the Swedish Golden Age. Even within Sweden today, the legacy of expansion remains. Provinces like Skåne, Halland and Blekinge were once Danish territory. In their towns, fortifications and historic buildings, the imprint of Sweden's ambitions during the Golden Age can still be seen. During the 30 Years' War, Swedish troops occupied Prague and brought back treasures. Notable among them are the Codex Gigas, or the Devil's Bible, the largest medieval manuscript in the world, now in Stockholm, and the 6th century Silver Bible in Gothic, kept in Uppsala. These manuscripts remain physical traces of Sweden's presence in the heart of Central Europe. Even though the Swedish Golden Age officially ended in 1721, the dream of an empire didn't disappear overnight. In 1784, almost a century later, Sweden became involved in a small Caribbean venture, acquiring the island of Saint Barthélemy from France. For nearly 100 years, Sweden ruled a small tropical port in the West Indies. Even today, the island's capital is still called Gustavia, named after King Gustav III, and Swedish street names can still be found there. The empire eventually faded, not into ruin, but into a new identity. The organizational precision that once ran an army now helps run a modern welfare state. The boundaries may have shrunk, but the Swedish Golden Age continues to echo today, in the streets of Germany, across the Baltic region, and in Sweden itself.